Welcome to Julie's Toolbox Talks podcast, your go-to resource for safe digging and protecting Illinois' underground infrastructure. Each episode will share practical tips, real stories, and expert insights to help you dig smart, stay safe, and keep your projects on solid ground. Brought to you by Julie, Illinois Facility Notification Center. Hello, and welcome to Julie's Toolbox Talks podcast, brought to you by Julie, Illinois Facility Notification Center. I'm your host, Jill Saylor. Thanks for tuning in today. In this episode, we're taking you behind the scenes to explore the world of locators, the people who keep our projects safe before the digging even begins. You'll hear firsthand stories about their daily challenges, the rewards of the job, and the vital role they play in preventing damage, promoting safety, and keeping everything running smoothly. But before we get started, I'll check in with my co-host today, Brian McKenzie. Brian, how you doing?
Hello, Jill. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, this is going to be a topic that's very close to you because you've spent more than 25 years in the damage prevention industry, and you started as a locator, correct?
I did. When I started locating many years ago, my hair was long and it blew in the breeze. And what you see now here is the result of decades of locating and dealing with this industry.
Well, then I'm sure that you're very familiar with today's guest, Billy Blackstock.
Yes, I am. Billy and I go way back.
Well, for those who don't know Billy, let me do a little bit of an introduction. Billy is the utility locating supervisor at TWM. He leads a team responsible for identifying and marking underground utilities to keep excavation projects safe and compliant. And he has years of hands-on field experience. So Billy brings practical expertise and leadership to one of the most critical steps in damage prevention. So thanks, Billy, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Fantastic. All of our 2 million listeners out here, Billy, we could talk for 4 days about locating issues, but we're going to try to narrow it down and keep a lid on it. But I am so excited you're here. Like I say, you and I have worked together out in the field. We slung paint together. So that's how far back we go. And I've got a lot of good questions for you today. So I'd like to kind of start off with, can you walk through what a typical day looks like for a locator, and how would you judge a successful locate?
It can be kind of detailed, but I mean, you start your morning out, the first thing you're going to do is probably look at the weather to make sure how you're going to dress, because it can change, and it changes fast here in Illinois, just like it does probably everywhere else. But, once you get that done, you open up your computer or your ability to look at whatever tickets you have access to, and you start reviewing them and seeing, where you're going to be. You kind of route yourself out, and then get into your day and stuff. And, probably the most important thing is safety. I've always felt, you're like one step away from an accident kind of thing. And whether it be you're stepping around the corner of a building or you're stepping out around the corner of a car, it can happen so fast. And it's like, you just got to be safe. That's the number one priority. Everything else will fall into place. That's the important thing, is you'll get it done.
I imagine, though, even your surroundings have changed back as the process has changed. More cell phones, more people not paying attention. That can be very, very scary for a locator when you're actually locating on the road.
Yeah, and still today, there's people that, I don't care how many cones you put around your car, how many flashing lights you got going on, there's still people that just fly by. And that's why it's like you can't just rely upon doing those things that keep you safe, wearing your safety vest, the class 3 safety vest and all the reflective stuff. You've got to keep your own eyes open, and you're aware of all your surroundings going on. I mean,
Absolutely.
You really do.
How has getting back to the tickets and the locating side of things, how has this mandatory pre-marking, along with the Julie ticket, helped you deal with some of the amount of locating requests that you get?
Oh, man, it is like heaven sent. That's all I can tell you. I mean, there has been in the past so much going on about locating the entire property or whatever when they knew they were digging in one area. and even as a locator, you would know that they were doing that. Just something as simple as planting one tree, and they want you to locate the whole front yard.
Yeah.
When you come in on your utilities are on one side of the yard and your tree is being planted over in the other, it's awesome. I mean, it increases our efficiency and productivity like you wouldn't know how. So it's just phenomenal.
It's always fascinating because, sorry, Jill, but go ahead and you answer your question and I'll jump in.
Oh, well, I was just going to ask, like, Billy, as a homeowner, like, is there anything that I can do to help a locator to make sure that they're safe, or anything that I can do as a homeowner?
Well, you know what? That's really a very, very good question, because we'll get locates called in not just from homeowners, but also contractors. Contractors to tell you hey, we're digging in the backyard, and they may not inform the homeowner, and lo and behold, the homeowner's gone, and there's a doggy door in the back door. It's like, you don't know that. When you go into that backyard, every single time you enter a backyard, you better be looking for signs right away. I mean, as you're walking next to the house to see if you hear dogs barking and if they're following you, and you stop at that back gate before you go in it, and you start looking around, and it's like, oh yeah. My best friend at that time is my spray gun. I've never had to spray a dog, but I've sprayed at him, and that was enough to keep him backed away from you so you could get back out of the yard.
I like to quote Bill Engvall there, that dog won't bite. He's always got blood on his lips, but you got to be careful, because as you're for our listeners out there, that those machines make very high frequency noises that you and I may not be able to hear, which could potentially drive a dog crazy. So there you go. There's your little dog lesson on locating. So please make sure those dogs are put up, folks.
Oh, yes, sir. It's any time. I'm telling you, every single time you go in a backyard, you better be looking for something along those lines. That's usually the most common thing. I mean, there's other things, don't get me wrong, but that's probably one of the most common.
Good. Well, I'm a dog owner, so that's good. The good tip for me, I'll make sure my dog is secure, and that there's nothing in the way for you guys to be able to get in and do your job too. Good advice.
Sure.
Thank you.
That's crucial. I mean, if you ask the locators come out, if you ask the locators to come to your property, please make sure they can access the property properly, to get the job done for you. Let's have another conversation, though, about all of these large projects that are coming out there, and with the ability now for pre-marking, with the ability to upload maps, with the ability to have joint meets to communicate now that the law has changed. What are some of the biggest challenges for you now with this? Because, again, this ties off to my other question, because we hear people saying, well, the locators are late all the time. Okay, but there comes a point where we have to look at why. And if just like the project that you have, you had a joint meet with 7 different joint meets trying to get the information out there, how do you combat that?
I think there's just some people that don't care. I don't want to say don't care. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, you've got the majority of the people that do the right thing, and that's the great thing about it. But then you do have these other people that, for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's something so big for them that they're just so wrapped up in their own little duties and stuff that they just don't quite understand or something. But the approach I take is, honestly, I try to communicate with the contractor, and will continue to communicate with him until I feel things are right and we fully understand each other. But I think that's the key. It's the communication level that you have to develop between you and your contractors. So it's like, once that occurs, then they start seeing you as if it was them. Yeah. And then they start to understand, oh yeah, that's why I need to do this, and so forth and everything. But yeah, you've got to keep communicating to them. And not from a standpoint, where you want to turn them off. It's like you can't be upset or whatever. You just got to be on a level tone, just having a discussion with them. And and trying to get on their good side, basically, kind of thing. I mean, that's how you have to approach them.
If you have to.
Because you don't want to make them upset.
Right.
I mean, you're for fear of making things worse. So, I mean, you just have to try to appeal to their sense of righteousness.
What's something that you really like about your job?
Oh, man, I tell you, I love being outside. It can be cold. It can be hot. That's just life, and it rains, okay? But that's the exciting thing to me, is just being outside. And you can dress for being cold. You can undress for being hot. And granted, it's still hot even beyond that still. But, nowadays we got air conditioned cars. So it's like, if you get too hot, you can go run over and get cooled off real quick. And that's the wonderful thing about that. It's like, and you get out and invariably, even though you're doing a job and you're doing it by yourself, you're still running into people, and you get to talk to people, and you hear quite some stories and stuff, and just it's kind of a social thing, but yet it's individual kind of thing. So it's like
best of both worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was really fascinating. As a locator, you get a ticket for building a foundation, then you get a ticket for installing sewer and water. So you actually watch a home grow. You actually watch it be, from the foundation being built, from the walls going up, from the roof going on, the sewer, water, electric, then the landscaping, and the homeowner visit. Then you're coming back for the fence, and then the landscaping. That's one thing that I really enjoyed about that, was seeing how things evolved. And because I like to learn, I like to see things. I'm a visual learner, and that was one of the greatest things, is seeing things, evolve.
And people remodeling homes and making additions and stuff like that. And you see a before and after kind of thing. And it's pretty neat. You definitely get some ideas.
Now think about when you first started. How have the tools and the technology changed over time? Do you see things getting better from when we first started?
Absolutely. It was still a matter back then of trying to send a signal down a line. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, you've got equipment that can tell you pretty accurately how deep things are. You can send a signal down the line, and it tells you that your signal is going a certain direction. And so then if you happen to jump over to a different line, and now that directional signal is going the wrong way, you've jumped on to a different line. You've got equipment now that gives you multiple antennas at the same time, and you can see the readouts from them, as in peak and null. So you can tell if a signal's is distorted, and there's a mathematical formula there that you can tell how far to move over to put your marks down so that you stay dead on the line. I mean, it has come along tremendously.
They're also, even on top of being the ability to locate in depth and things like that, they're also now giving the ability for the end user to place marking balls and things to update maps too.
Oh,
so you can not only locate, but you can update your maps at the same time.
I'm using a piece of equipment right now. I can take survey grade quality shots on as I take and locate that line. I can take a shot on it, and it'll get uploaded to the world live, kind of thing. And it's just phenomenal. So now somebody can have a record of their locate with GPS coordinates and stuff.
It's amazing.
And I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. That's phenomenal.
It's life-changing.
It is.
Yeah. For people out there that, and there are a lot of municipalities out there that have not taken good records of their maps where their information is. And now with the ability, with these new locating equipment that are out there, they can slowly start to rebuild their maps and put them into a GIS situation or whatever it's going to be. But the technology is changing. The theory is the same, right? Applying a signal, finding the signal. But you're right. The information, the way you gather the information is changing too as well. So
yes.
We're locators. We're ex-locator. I'm a retired locator, and I've got so many stories, like fishing stories, But do you have a memorable story that really drives the fact home, where a unique situation where locating truly is why it is so important?
There's so much going on nowadays. It's just unreal, with high pressure gas lines, with fiber optic cables that have the ability to carry and people be so dependent on that information right now. It's just unreal. But I mean, probably one of the closest calls I'm aware of, I wasn't necessarily personally involved with it, but was with a high pressure gas main. There was an actual mislocate, and it was actually verified by, I would say, an unqualified individual. And thank God the digger, and this goes on a lot because I'm doing a lot of construction observation now. Those people that run those backhoes can develop a certain feel for resistance in the ground, and they can tell when they think they've hit something. And in this particular case, they hit a high pressure gas main, and they just knew, oh man, something's not right here. And they stopped, and sure enough, they exposed it, and it could have been catastrophic. I mean, I've seen videos of people that weren't that fortunate and had a huge fireball, kind of thing. And it's unreal. But no, with today's age and stuff, with so much important stuff in the ground, it's critical, to be as accurate as you can be with your locates.
And it's another reason why to make sure that the information that goes into the Julie ticket in the first part on the user's end, that they get as much information out to you, the locator, as possible. Where, when, what, how, what am I doing? Fill up that information as much as you can. People think, well, I don't want to give you too much information. No, please, more information, maps, show me what you're doing, tell me what you're doing. That will help you in the end avoid a situation like you just talked about.
And that goes back to your prior question about the biggest challenges you face. I don't think you hear anybody saying, I have too much information. And so the more that you can give me or your locator, the better job they'll more than likely do.
Yep.
100%. That's the truth.
100%.
Well, Brian, do you have any other questions for Billy?
Oh, like I said, we could go on for days and days and days. And this, maybe we'll have Billy back for part 2 on this.
Oh, but, there you go.
Again, the biggest thing I would like to help everyone realize again is the more information, the better. Just as Billy had pointed out, makes a better locate. It really, really does on your end.
Yeah, it really does. When we know that locate's going right through that dig, you can bet we are focused to try to get as accurate as possible. And I pride myself throughout my years of being within inches. If I knew if somebody was digging, I would try to be as dead on as I could be.
Yes.
And because the time they take to hand dig it, they want to know they're right on. Mm-hmm. They want to know it's right there, and they're more careful there when they're digging. So when you're a foot, 18 inches or even more off, and they have to dig more, then they probably lose that patience level, and you start digging faster and harder, and it's like, so yeah, no, I've always prided myself on that accuracy when I knew where they were digging.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, Billy, thanks for giving us a real world look at what it takes to be a locator. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you and everything you do to keep your team and your projects safe and on track.
Well, thank you for having me. I certainly appreciate it.
Great. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Julie's Toolbox Talks podcast. If you want to learn a little bit more about Julie, be sure to check out our website, juliebeforeyoudig.com. And you can find all kinds of resources there that will support you, whether you're a homeowner, a contractor, or a utility professional. So until next time, stay safe, and remember, safe digging is in your hands. Contact Julie before you dig.